Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited for today's topic. We're going to be talking about parenting commitments, or if you're listening, your parenting commitments and what you're really committed to. And when I say really committed to, I think I'm more referring to what you're unconsciously committed to. I think a lot of the times, not just as parents, but everybody, we think we have this overall goal and something that we're committed to, like our kids, but really we're committed to our jobs and how much we're making at work and all kinds of things. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that, inherently as parents, when our kids are born, we make an unconscious or semi-conscious commitment to take care of that baby and have that baby, grow and learn and discover. And our commitment is to nurture that baby to become powerful adults in the world that are a contribution and to be successful in all areas of their life. But I think somewhere down the line in their growth, maybe when they're 7 or 9 or 15 or 18, there's a pivotal moment where the parent just either, if they're doing okay, if their children are doing okay, they just kind of let them figure it out rather than being clear about what their commitment is and figuring out how to reinvent themselves as a parent to help their kids get to the next level. And I don't know if parents are consciously operating from that place, revisiting their commitment every year or quarterly or every 6 months. They're sitting back going, okay, what does my daughter need from me this year? What does my son kind of support do they need from me? And how do I need to change my parenting style so that my kids get what they need to win in life?
And I think commitments kind of get forgotten about when you initially make the commitment and you're excited about it and you're really putting in the effort, and then after a couple of days or weeks it gets put on the back burner because more important things come up to you at the time, like stuff at work or stuff with your family, other things that don't have to do with your kids. So I don't know about you or what your personal commitments are, but I for the most part believe that in our family, for as far as you and mom, your commitments do lie in our family, and everything that you guys do is for our family and your kids. However, there's times where I'm sure everybody does this. You get so consumed or focused on trying to make more money for the family or trying to bring, gifts for Christmas or whatever. So you start focusing on other things to make us happy. And all of a sudden you kind of forget about that commitment and you kind of think you're working towards it in that same area. Does that make sense? But it kind of gets forgotten about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also raises the question that maybe there's a good possibility that you never really made a conscious commitment in the first place. And the reason why I say that is because I am guilty of that. When I had, you and your brother and your sister when I was younger in my early 20s, I don't think I made a conscious commitment to raise you guys. I think there was an unconscious agreement that I made in my mind that I was going to do the best I can. And doing the best you can as a parent versus committed to having your kids win, they're distinctively different things. And if you're operating from, I'm just going to do the best I can from not really a higher sense of awareness, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to create I'm doing the best I can results. And your kids are only going to create the best they can results from you being the source of, I'm doing the best I can as a parent. It takes a conscious level for you to decide that from that moment forward, you're going to be committed to having your kids win. It's a whole different ball game. And so I'm painting that picture for those parents that go, maybe I haven't really made a conscious commitment to really play to win. Because when we talk about, when it comes to playing, there's different levels. There's playing to win. There's playing not to lose. There's just playing. And there's not playing at all. And I think you have to really, from a conscious level, ask yourself, what category am I in? Where do I get up every morning and operate from? Am I really playing to win? Because if I'm really playing to win, I'm, rigorously working on myself, and I'm rigorously being self-aware and questioning myself and doing this self-reflection and checking in with myself. And I have goals, and I have coaches, and I have mentors, and I have people that I rely on to give me feedback. And I'm doing this elaborate game called I'm playing to win. And if you're not playing to win, it's okay. But figure out where you are. Take a deep, honest look and ask yourself, where am I playing this game called parenting? Am I just an average parent? Am I a great parent? Am I a good parent? Or do I want to be an extraordinary parent? I mean, this is a good opportunity for us to take a good look at ourselves and ask ourselves that. And I wonder, as I'm talking, I'm wondering how many people during New Year's told themselves they wanted to be a better parent. And amongst all the, I want to lose, 50 pounds and I want to eat better and all that. So I wonder how many people said, my goal this year is to be the best parent I could be.
Probably not as many people who should have. But I think there are a lot of, especially now, a lot of people waking up and becoming a little bit more conscious and wanting that for their kids. And I think it's so exciting when I hear parents parents that have gone through your trainings, or that their kids are going through your trainings and they start working on themselves, and their kids end up saying stuff to them like, wow, Mom, like you've changed, or wow, I don't know what you're doing, but it's so cool. And I like how the parents like light up when they're like sharing their story, because their kids are acknowledging them and they're seeing them. And I think a lot of the time, especially for me, when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have noticed. I would have just been like, oh, Mom's acting weird, but I wouldn't have said anything to acknowledge my mom or whoever was working on themselves. And I think it's, really cool when they do step out of their shell and do, go out of their way to compliment them, because they're really working hard. It's hard, or it's challenging to be a parent.
Well, I think you were only able to notice it because we introduced you to this journey called self-growth and personal development, and you on your own accord decided to embark on your own conscious journey because we introduced you to it. So I think you're a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to young people in their early 20s of being really self-aware and noticing things like that. I don't necessarily know that most teenagers or children, for that matter, are really noticing it to that level. They might do it in an unconscious state, like, Mom's acting, like you said, Mom's
right.
acting different, or something. There's something different about Dad, but they're not, enlightened enough to be able to go, you know what, my dad is really opening himself up, and he's really, a lot more patient now, and he's taking the time. They can't articulate themselves like that yet because they're still, at a lower level of consciousness.
Right. And if they've never seen it before, they're not really exactly sure what it is or what they're seeing. So if you as a dad are becoming more vulnerable and sharing and have all kinds of new assets that they're probably really excited about, but they're also confused because they don't really know that you're working on yourself. They're not part of that process. So I think it'd be really cool to make them part of that process and introduce them to that, especially if they're young, and kind of grow with them too.
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I have a couple of clients right now that are going through that. They are really excited about this new venture, and their eyes are opening up, and they're seeing the world for the first time at a whole new level, and they're really looking at themselves. And to me, they're really champions. They're digging down deep and challenging themselves and having these breakthroughs. And a lot of the coaching comes, to me, and it's about, now how do I get my kids to see this? And they're having a little bit of struggles there. And I have to remind them that your kids have been operating for their whole life, and in their whole lifetime up till now, they've been operating in your world, in your little family, in your four walls at home, in an dysfunctional state to some level, because we all got some dysfunction to some level, and you've basically trained them to be survival mode in that dysfunctional home. And now all of a sudden, after 15 years or 18 years or 12 years, you decide that you had an epiphany and you want to be a better mom or be a better dad. And all of a sudden you're starting to realize and start to make those changes. but you need to now be patient and compassionate towards your kids. They don't know what's going on. They're looking at you going, you're changing the rules on me, Dad. What's going on? I've already learned how to manipulate you and put you against mom and mom against you. I've already learned all these little tools to survive inside of this dysfunctional game called our family. And so it's a big wake-up call now for some of those parents that are seeing that, and they're kind of getting a little bit down, in the dumps and being a little depressed. But for me, when they tell me that, I'm excited. As their coach, I'm excited because I'm like, this is awesome, because this is that early stages of you getting to now really come up against it. And now you're recognizing what kind of changes you need to make. And it's a great opportunity for you to explain to your kids of what kind of journey you guys are doing, and then invite them to be a part of it.
And I think in that invitation, I don't know if you have to, but I think it's really important to be vulnerable, because I don't want to say they're scared, because I don't know, but I know that I would be scared. I'd be afraid of that change, of going from this thing that I've known my whole life for 15 years or however long, and then all of a sudden, like you said, the rules are different and things are changing. Mom and dad are acting different, and I don't know what to do. And it's because they're not being vulnerable and they're not sharing with me. And they're not making me a part of that part of their life. So when you do, as a parent, I think it's really important to be vulnerable and to share everything that you're going through, because they need, I think as kids, we need an explanation, and we need to know why, and we need to know how you came about this and all kinds of things in order to be comfortable and trust you enough to go into this experience with you.
Well, they don't call you guys the why generation for nothing, because you're always needing to know why. And what's funny is, if you come from the old school, which is almost contradictory, the parent that comes from the old school mind frame of, do it because I said so. They're not, we're not used to sitting down and explaining why, nor have we mastered the patience yet to sit down and explain to you why. So we go back to the old school, because I said so, or just don't worry about it. And today's kids, they need to know why. So to be a conscious parent committed to having your kids win, you have to figure out or decide and learn how to reinvent yourself. You're going to have to learn how to discover how you got to find that patience and sit down with them and take that committed time of 45 minutes to sit down and really walk your kids through almost every process you go through. You're actually retraining them. If it took you, 14 or 15 years to get them to be trained to have certain behaviors, it's going to take a little bit of effort and some time and a big commitment for you to find that patience to really walk them through and handhold them through that process.
And not just that, I think it would take a lot to admit that maybe you were wrong all those years, the way that you were raising them or certain things that you taught them. Maybe you need to admit to yourself or to them that was wrong, or not every time it's wrong. Sometimes it just is. But you have to admit that maybe you weren't as conscious and you could have done better, and this is you trying to do better now.
Yeah, I think the distinction is just take responsibility for it. It doesn't necessarily need to be a wrong thing, because if you don't know any different, if you don't know any better, it's not necessarily wrong. It's just maybe not effective. You can take responsibility and tell your kids, look, your mom and I realize that we're not operating as effective as we can be as parents. And so by us having that wake-up call and us realizing that there's a lot more interpersonal growth that we need to do. There's a lot of stuff I need to master within myself. I need to learn how to let go of some of my fear. I have to learn how to, build some assurance and some confidence in myself to be able to deal with you. When you come to me and you're challenging me, and I allow myself to get tagged, and I go into reaction, and now I'm sitting there arguing with a 14-year-old, I've given up my power. So there's some things that you have to master within yourself as a parent to be able to create that big enough context for you to be that leader in your home, where you're not letting your kids press your buttons. Once you let your kids press your buttons and you're getting tagged or going into resistance, you basically have surrendered the sword, so to speak. You gave up your flag. You let them capture your goat, and when that happens, they won.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in certain situations, like let's say for this one, you have to, as a parent, make a commitment to not get tagged. And then next time you have to make a commitment to figure out how to fix it, or make a commitment to whatever it is that's going to make your family more functional, more effective.
So you have people excited probably right now that are listening, go, yeah, I want that. I want to figure out how to not get tagged. How do you do that?
Well, there's this thing, it's an art form. It's called being neutral. And we talk about it all the time.
But where do you learn that from?
Your parents.
No, where do you learn all these tools to be neutral and not get tagged?
I know you want me to say you, but
well, not just necessarily me, but you gotta find somebody to coach you into figuring out how to figure out how to access more of your personal power, so that you can be a powerful parent, and don't let your insecurities and the preconditioned settings that you've grown up with and all that dysfunction trigger you in your parenting to where it sabotages your results.
Yeah, I think having that third party, to kind of someone who's on the outside and doesn't have any, I guess, personal relationship in the family to say who's right and who's wrong, to just give you more options and more perspective on things, it's going to be a lot more effective than you trying to do it on your own, which you trying to do it on your own is great. And I think you just trying it all and being conscious and trying to be a better parent is awesome. But if you want to take it up a notch, I think having that person, if it's a coach or some people aren't very coachable, or if it's a therapist or whatever it is for you, there's always going to be more that you can do.
Well, if you're not coachable, good luck, because even a therapist won't help you. Being coachable, and that'll be a whole nother topic that we can talk about in a whole nother day, but being coachable is key for anybody to grow, for anybody to discover and get to the next level. You have to be coachable. You have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to look at your perception and say, maybe the way that I see things isn't necessarily the way that it really is. And that's what coaching is about, is, a good coach can open up possibilities for you to see things that you couldn't see before. And in that new sight, you're having a whole new level of consciousness and awareness. And that's where you start to become more powerful and make better decisions from that growth.
Right. And if you have a good coach, they're going to open up those possibilities for you to decide on your own. They're not, for you to come to your own realization instead of telling you what you should do. And I think a lot of the time, especially when you go to your friends for help and maybe advice or coaching or whatever, they're going to just tell you, because they don't have the experience that, a life coach would have to let you come to that decision on your own. And I know that when my friends tell me something, I don't exactly hear it. It doesn't exactly sit with me as much as if I would have come to that realization on my own.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing about coaching, is if you get yourself a good coach, they ask you certain questions that you normally don't ask yourself. It's like planting seeds, and then they let the seeds plant. So a couple days later, it's all of a sudden, the greatest thing that I love doing is I plant seeds with some of my clients, and then 4 or 5 days later, I'll get a text and they'll go, "Oh, I just realized this," and I'm like, yes. It was like those seeds started to plant. They started to sprout, and that's when the real growth happens, is when somebody, your coach or your mentor or an advisor, can plant seeds or ask certain questions for you to come to your own conclusions of what your breakthrough is, or what change you need to make, or what's the next move for you, is when they can get you to realize it for yourself, rather than somebody being the mighty guru that you come to and say, Almighty One, give me all my answers. Your answers are already within you. There's just a little bit of cloudiness and dysfunction that's in the way of you really accessing that part and getting down to the goodies and finding all that wisdom and all the answers that you need.
Right. And I think it's very powerful, because you could get a coach and write them a check just for telling you what to do, but it takes a really good coach to stop, like you said, plant the seed, ask the questions, and let you come to that realization on your own. And I think, like I said, it's very powerful, because it's easy to just tell somebody what to do and still get paid.
Absolutely. But let's get back to commitment, a parenting commitment. So I want to ask you briefly, before we go on a break, what does it look like for you in your future as a parent? What kind of commitments are you going to make, knowing what you know now and have been, introduced to, consciousness and making the extra effort and thinking outside the box and being willing to look at yourself and examine yourself? What kind of parenting commitments do you think you're looking for to?
there's a couple, so I'm just going to name them off, and then you can ask me what you want after. But one of the things that I really hope to be committed to as a parent would be committed to reinventing myself, as they get older and as times change and things change. Another one would be committed to paying attention. So knowing when it's time to reinvent myself, paying attention to what's going on with them, what they're going through, just, and being committed to being there, being committed to giving my time, be committed to my family instead of all the other things that I think my family's going to want from me or think is going to make them proud or whatever, my accomplishments, because I think ultimately, one of the most valuable things I could give anybody really is my time. And I want them to know that they have it and that they have my attention, and that, pulling me away from work or anything else is okay, that's allowed. I guess I would really want to be committed to being open and having that, I guess, giving them that permission.
Now, when do you think that commitment should start?
Now. Practicing on, everybody else and, my family and stuff at work. And
so when are you going to start it?
Now. Yesterday.
Now, what's funny was before we started, having the conversation about being a great coach and asking questions, as you were sharing in my mind, I was thinking you should already have started that process.
Right.
And so instead of sitting here and telling you as the guru or having the wise, answer for you, notice how I asked you the question. And then by asking you the question, I had to trust that you will come to your own conclusion that, you know what, I need to start that now. And by me asking that question, you flip the switch on, hopefully inside of you, that when you walk out of these doors, that you already have that now in the top of your brain there, and you already start operating like that. You already start prepping yourself for it. Because if you're prepping yourself or in your mind that you're going to do it when you have your kids, most likely it's not going to happen. You got to decide right now, I'm going to start prepping myself for that. Just like any other goal or dream that you have, you want to be that doctor, or you're studying to be that, photographer or the director of, Broadway plays. You got to already start becoming it now. You got to choose to be that person now. And what happens is at a certain point from all that hard work of you choosing it now, it actually shows up in front of you, actually manifests it right in front of you because of that decision.
It sounds great. I can't wait to hear more after the break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.